Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a player guide on Captain America Infinity War, or Nomad as some people might call him from the movies. He's a real cool champ to play. He's got tons of abilities that we have to go through, so I'm going to be doing this guide on his pros, his cons, his gameplay, how to use them, and so much more. Again, these guides are for newer players or players that aren't familiar with the champ. So let's get started. So taking a look at Captain America Infinity War's abilities, we're going to first focus on his kinetic abilities, his block proficiency defense, and his glancing. Like most of the Captain Americas, he has a high block proficiency. He's actually the highest of the three Captain Americas. This is a 4-star rank 5, and he has a block proficiency of 76.3, which will reduce all incoming attack damages by that percentage, which is really high and really nice. You're going to be blocking a lot with this champ because it is used to set up his kinetics, so we'll talk about that a little bit later. His armor rating's at 12%. That is a little low, I would have to say, so try not to get hit. His critical rating is fair, 23%, pretty strong, and his critical damage a little bit low on 180%, but still not so bad. Since his block proficiency is so high, I would suggest that you get into your masteries and max out your block proficiency. Obviously that will help even increase your percentage even higher. So let's move on from here. So to show you a quick example of the block proficiency, we're going to let Captain Marvel beat on me here. We're also going to see the glancing ability. Basically, any attack has a 30% chance to glance. If it does glance, the damage is cut in half by 50%. It won't be a critical attack, and 100% offensive ability accuracy reduction. So things like bleed won't hurt you if it's a glancing attack. As you can see here, I took an SP1, barely took any damage at all from the blocking. Glancing can also happen on your blocks. She missed me there, unfortunately, to show you. Again, SP1, barely any damage. I think I'm going to avoid the heavy attack here. I'm going to get hit by an SP1 on purpose here in a moment. I got hit. See, the glancing again saved me and did just very little damage. So you can see that the glancing, the block proficiency, and the kinetics, which we'll talk about here in a second, all help him really become an awesome defensive champ. So one of the most important features of Captain America Infinity War is his Vibranium Vambraces, which gives him the ability to store kinetic potential charges. You'll see that little green circle up in the corner. That's my charge count. There's a few ways that you can get the charges to increase. One is if he struck normally, he has a 15% chance to gain 1 charge. If he struck on his block, he has a 50% chance to get a charge. If he does a perfect block or a perfect parry, he has a 100% chance to get 1 charge. And if he's stunned, he gets a 100% chance to get 1 charge. Now, he can only have up to 5, but he can have up to 6 in special cases, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Basically, when he has at least 1 kinetic energy, like I have right now, he gets 574 attack bonus, he gets 666 physical resistance, and he gets 666 energy resistance. So again, that adds on to his already incredible block proficiency. He also has the ability to stop unstoppable opponents when he has at least 1 kinetic charge up. Now, those bonuses, the attack and the physical resistance and the energy resistance, you only need 1 kinetic charge, and they do not stack. So having 5 kinetic charges doesn't matter for that particular bonus. So these kinetic potential charges are very important, and we'll be talking about them throughout the fight. Obviously, having at least 1 up gives you the attack bonus, the physical and energy resistance that I talk about, and the ability to stop the unstoppable opponents. I also talked about you can get to 6 of them instead of 5, and I'll show you how to do that right here. After you use a special 3, you'll get a kinetic potential charge, one that lasts longer. You'll see it up there in the corner. See, we have 2 right now. The one on the left is the one from the special 3 that's going very slowly. and the one on the right are the ones that you're building. So technically you can get up to 6. Right now I have 6, as you can see there. Now the normal ones are always dropping, so you always have to keep them up, either through the blocks or the hits or the parries and so forth. Having the kinetic potentials up are very important. They're very good for doing higher special damage, and very good for making stuns last longer, and when you're with your synergies and so forth, you can do stuff like purify your buffs. So we'll talk about all that a little bit later. This is just a quick rundown on how things work. So just a side note on the Unstoppable on how to stop it. First of all, you have to have a kinetic charge up, and second, you have to actually hit the opponent to cancel out the Unstoppable. As you can see, I did right there after the special 1. So either you have to intercept or run in after a special. It does not automatically disable it, and just remember, you got to have your kinetic charge up. So we're going to wait here for a special 2 and run in, and Unstoppable is cancelled. So this is a great ability. You'll be able to really take out Juggernaut and any other champ that might have Unstoppable, or a node that might have Unstoppable. I'm really thinking about Act 4 as well. There's a very difficult Juggernaut in Act 4. If you happen to have Captain America Infinity War, well, you're very lucky. So let's move on to the next part. So moving on, we will be talking about the kinetics throughout the video, but the next pro will be the special 2, the kinetic discharge, stun and damage, and we're also going to combine it with the heavy attack, which causes fury for 5 seconds. I'm combining these two because they work very well together, and we're going to show you right here. Your special 2 is probably your biggest damage dealer and the one you'll be using the most. For every kinetic charge you have up, it adds an additional 574 attack bonus, and it also adds a 0.5 seconds per charge for your stun as well. Now if you can do a combination of your heavy and your SP2, you can do some massive damage, which we're going to see right here. So that's a heavy SP2, 50,000 points on a critical. Very impressive. I'm going to show you how that works. Basically, when you do your heavy attack, you're getting a 5-second fury, which adds more to your attack, and you can break up your heavy attack and your special. So we're going to show the fast version here. 38,000 points of damage. So basically what's happening is I'm getting ready for my heavy attack. I do part 1 of my heavy attack, and then I go right into my special 2. That allows me to get the fury attack bonus for extra damage. So again, I get ready, I do part 1 of my heavy attack, and then hit my special button to go right into the special 2. Boom, 38,000 points of damage. Very nice damage, and also a very long stun after. Especially the more charges you have up, the longer the stun will be. Now you got to remember that when you use your special attack, all your kinetic potential charges are removed, and you have to start from the beginning again. So the next pro I want to talk about, we're going to talk about the special 1 and the special 3 in this discussion. The special 1, when you're kinetically charged, you have to be kinetically recharged like you see with the blue. When you do your special 1, it will do 287 direct damage over 3.5 seconds, and it will reduce the enemy's defensive ability accuracy by 100%. So what that means is when you're unleashing your SP1 and you hit, their defensive abilities will be down. So Iron Man Infinity War's auto block won't work. The Fury from Medusa won't work because that's defensive. Evade from Spider-Man won't work. And even if you time it with Magic Limbos, it won't work. So it's all defensive. So we're going to go through 4 fights, I believe, on the SP1 just to show you some examples. Normally I wouldn't exactly fight like this, but I wanted to show you basically how it's done. Also having deep wounds would be beneficial here, as he does the bleed damage. He won't do bleed damage here with the Iron Man unless I hit him with his armor when it's not up, but that's somewhat difficult at times. It's I mean, mostly you'll be using your SP2 like I did there with the stun and the bigger damage. But the SP1 has its juices. You're especially going to see it on the Magik and the Medusa fight. And at the very end of this particular fight, when Iron Man Infinity War is down to 15%, he auto blocks everything. So basically you have to heavy attack or use your specials, like a special 3. But in this case we're going to be doing our special 1 and we're going to plow right through it. Another good idea is to also use your heavy fury and combine it with your SP1. You could do that as well. So he's getting close here. He's going in. I'm going to use my SP1 and I'm going to bypass all his auto block. Right, dun, dun, dead. Now again, we're going to show you another example with Medusa. When she has 3 furies up, you can't hit her. You can hit her once, but you can't hit her twice because she will auto parry, and then she'll stun you, and then she'll tear you to pieces. So we're going to show you here. She's got the 3 up. Bypassed it with the SP1. Now, like I said, normally when I fight like this, I'm just trying to use my SP1s, and I'm trying to get her to 3 fury so I can show you. And you might have noticed I also used my heavy attack and combined it. Very effective, and she dies from bleed damage. Now Spider-Man's a little more tricky because you have to time your SP1 where he doesn't evade. Remember, he can still evade your regular attacks, no problem. But when you actually use your SP1, he won't be able to evade that. As you see right there, there's the first one. His defensive accuracy doesn't work. He caught me there. Just kind of dodge out of there. Again, my SB1, he couldn't evade it. Perfect damage. I'm gonna do it one more time, I believe. With Spidey, you know, you can try to parry him, it might be a little bit easier. And then one more time, no evasion. And then he's going to bleed out. Or almost bleed out. So Magik is a little bit different. When she goes over a bar of power, she gains Limbo. We're going to let her do it here the first time. But the second time, we're going to time her SB1 and push her over that bar of power at the same time. And doing that will actually cause her Limbo not to come into effect. So we're going to do it right here when she... Okay, so she did... We timed it to go over, and see, no Limbo. Only Limbo when she actually used her special. But she did not get the Limbo when I actually pushed her over the power meter. Now, if you don't time it perfectly, it's not going to work. So next we have is the SP3. Like the other specials, try to launch it with your Fury Heavy technique, and also keep your kinetic energies high for maximum damage. It's not as good as the SP2. It does pretty good damage. It does 1148 attack damage per class in your Alliance questing group, but only up to 2 classes. It also gives you that 30-second kinetic potential energy that you see up there in the corner. That will help you get to 6 kinetic energies, which is quite high. And also, since it lasts for 30 seconds, that means you're guaranteed having energy resistance, physical resistance, and your attack 574 bonus up for at least 30 seconds with no problem at all. And it looks pretty damn cool. Just one more example of the special one and the defensive ability accuracy reduction against Cable. Normally if you bleed Cable you will get Degeneration, but in this case you use your SP1 and Cable is bleeding and you take no damage. So basically just keep in mind that any champ that has a defensive ability and you're using your SB1 and you have a kinetic charge up, there's a good chance you're going to bypass whatever that ability does. There's going to be more examples. These are 4 or 5 examples that I showed you, but I'm sure there's a lot more. You just got to figure it out for yourself and just focus on whatever defensive abilities they might have, and there's a good chance that good old Cap is going to bypass it perfectly with his SB1. So the next pro after the special 1 and 3 would have to be the signature ability, which is called Leadership. And we're also going to discuss the synergies of Captain America. Both of these abilities are very impressive and are quite useful. So let's start off with the leadership. So first we'll take a look at the leadership. Obviously Captain America has to be awakened for this ability. Captain America learns from his teammates, gaining a unique effect while kinetically charged for each class represented on his team. So basically every class gives him a special power. I'll quickly go over them and then I'll show you some gameplay of the ones I like the most. The mutant one, basically normally when Captain America is fighting and he uses a special attack, he loses all his kinetic energy. With the mutant, after a special attack, you gain +1, which is a nice bonus because it keeps your physical resistance up, your energy resistance up, and your attack bonus up. The skill is pretty cool as well. Every time a debuff is gained, it consumes 1 kinetic energy to purify it. So let's say that someone caused bleed on you, it would use one of your kinetic potentials and then wipe out the bleed. Science is okay. A well-timed block places a 10% weakness debuff on the opponents for 10 seconds. Not the best, but it'll do. Mystic's kind of cool for characters that have a lot of buffs expiring or nullified. You gain a 1 kinetic potential each time a buff expires, so that can be useful. Cosmic is probably my favorite. A well-timed blocked or a perfect parry, I guess you could say, will place an armor break, reducing the opponent's armor by 222.22 for 10 seconds, and those are stackable. And lastly, the tech, a well-timed block to place a 25% Petrify debuff, which is also stackable, I believe, and that will help basically slow down people's healing and power gain. So let's take a look at some gameplay on that. So let's go over some examples of the leadership. I have a tech and a cosmic on this team, which gives me the ability to armor break and petrify. The perfect counter for Killmonger is to take down his armor. Every time I do a parry, as you see here, I'm getting an armor break, which is stackable. If he was stun immune, I can just do a well-timed block. It would do the same thing for the armor break. So very nice ability. Obviously for Killmonger it's amazing, but for many other champs as well. Cosmic is my favorite because it gives the armor break. I really enjoy that feature. Moving on from here, we're going to look at Deadpool. He's going to cause a bleed to us after his SP3. I have a skill champ on here, so my skill champ will purify the bleed. And we're going to see it coming up here. It's going to say restored. So normally I'd be bleeding quite badly here, but it's restored and no blood damage. Here we got a tech champion and cosmic again. We're going to petrify Hyperion. His power gain is slower when you had the petrify up, which is also stackable. Just another bonus for trying to slow down champions that have high power gain or high healing. And lastly, here is a Sentinel. He's going to hit me with a debuff, an armor break debuff, which I'm going to purify because I have skill champ. Armor break restored. So you can see there's a lot of things you can do with these abilities, and it's very important to have the leadership if you can get it. So much like the leadership, we will go over these synergy bonuses. We'll show you a little bit of them, and then we'll talk about some gameplay. My favorite is the tech. If you have a Vision or an Iron Man on your team with Captain America, all the techs will get this ability where the max power is reduced to 0 of the attacker when they use a special. So a quick example, if a attacker had 1.5 bars of power and they used a special one, that special one would cost everything and go down to 0. So it's pretty neat, and we'll show you a little bit later. The mutant evolution is basically a 20% prowess, which is a 20% extra damage to special attacks for all mutants on the team. Skill training gives 250 critical rating on basic attacks. The science experiment is a little bit different. It reduces their attack by 50% except when being struck by them. Basically things like Dormammu's Degeneration would be an example. You would only take maybe half the damage instead of the full damage from that. Mystic Craft, 30% of their attack as direct damage as their opponents when they're nullifying one of their buffs. So basically when a Doctor Strange or a Magik or whoever nullifies a buff, it does extra damage per buff, so it's pretty cool. The counterspell works really well for that. And then the Cosmic Power, Cosmic Champions increase their buff durations by 25%. So that's a pretty sweet one as well. Now you got to remember, you have to have one of these guys on your team. Like for instance, with the tech here, if I just had Star-Lord and Captain America, it would not work. You'd have to have one of these tech guys. Once you have a Vision, let's say right here, if you had a Vision and a Captain America and 3 other techs, it would work for all the techs. You just have to have one of these guys for each category. So let's quickly show some gameplay of some of the abilities of the synergy. So we're going to show the Mystic synergy first. Obviously I have a Scarlet Witch, Doctor Strange, or Jane Foster on the team with Captain America Infinity War. Basically how this synergy works is every time you nullify a buff, you do extra damage to your opponent. So I brought in Magik, and she will use her SP3 and nullify all those Venom buffs. And you're going to see some regular damage, and you're going to see some nullified damage from the synergy. So as you can see here, it's 28,000 regular damage and 3,625 nullified damage from the synergy. It's a nice little bonus, so keep that in mind when you're using Mystic Champs, that you could do some extra damage per nullify. Now we're going to move on from this one, and we're going to take a look at the Tech Champ with the power that goes down to 0. So we have a Star-Lord right here. Now after this special, start to watch Winter Soldier's power meter down below. He's going to get to 1.5 bars of power and use the special right here. And watch the power disappear right down to 0. So that's the ability. Basically, any extra power that they have after their special, it goes back down to 0. So it's a pretty sweet ability to have with your tech champs. So lastly, I'm going to show the Science synergy and show the weakness. This is a Act 5 Dormammu. Normally he does about 360 degeneration damage to me, but I have the ability to place a weakness on him, and you're going to see once I start degenerating that I'm taking 161. So that's about half of what he normally does. So it's not a bad synergy for Science champs to kind of stop that unavoidable damage. Well, not stop it, but kind of slow it down a bit. So keep that in mind when you're facing these type of champs, that the Science synergy might be a good idea. So just quickly before we move on to the cons, I just want to talk about a couple mastery settings. One is Petrify is pretty good for good old Captain America Infinity War because he already has the ability. So you're adding more 30% to that. So slowing down health and power gains for your opponents is always beneficial. And the other one that's very interesting is this one here, which I don't have opened yet, called Inequity. Decreases opponent attack by 2% for every detrimental effect they suffer, up to a maximum of 36%. But then you can rank that up for 6%. This is a pretty cool ability because Captain America is constantly putting debuffs on opponents. So while you're doing that and stacking up your debuffs, you're also decreasing their attack. Pretty cool to have, but kind of expensive to open. So I haven't done it yet myself. Maybe if I get a 5-star Captain America in the future, I might consider opening this up and playing with it. But not right now. So now we're going to move on to the cons. We spent a lot of time on the pros and the gameplay, so we're just going to burn through these cons pretty quickly. He doesn't really have a lot of horrible weaknesses, so this is pretty easy and pretty self-explanatory, so let's begin. So the first con, and it's not a big con, is there's just a lot to remember with Captain America. He has so many abilities. He's got the kinetics, he's got the different specials, how to use your specials against certain champs, the class relationships for his leadership. He has special abilities per class, his synergies. It's just a lot going on with this guy. He's just not a hit and smash kind of champ. And if you don't use him a lot and you just bring him in once in a while, you're going to have to keep on going in and reminding yourself what he's used for and what's the best time to use him, and what synergies to bring in and what leadership to bring in. He's a great champ and he's fun. It's just that there's a little bit of work involved when you're using him. So the next con is he has no regeneration at all. He has no natural immunities to bleed or poison. He does have a little bit of partial immunity when he has a skill champ on his team, where he can basically resolve debuffs to him if he has some kinetic energy up. But that's pretty well it. He's not a super healer, but thanks to his amazing block proficiency, he can still last quite a long time. Another small con is when he's unduped, he's not as good. That leadership ability is just amazing. You get to do so many things like the armor break and the petrify and the kinetic energy after a special and so forth. It just makes him really, really cool. I think he's a solid champ without being duped, and you can still use him quite a lot in many different scenarios, but having that duped ability with the leadership really enhances his abilities. And the last con is, like many of the other Captain Americas, he's not very strong as a defender in Alliance Wars. He's probably the best out of the three Captain Americas, in my opinion. You might get a kill out of him if you get lucky, but he's pretty easy to defeat. And since synergies don't work in defense for war, he's not as effective. Maybe with a skill champ team, his leadership, he might be able to pop out of a stun that might surprise somebody, but in reality he's pretty weak on the defense side, maybe for diversity, and that's pretty much it. So there you have it, guys, the guide on Captain America Infinity War. Just to sum up, remember a few things. Always try to keep at least one kinetic charge up. That will give you physical and energy resistance plus attack bonus. Remember, when you use your special attacks, the more kinetic charges you have up, the more damage it will do. Remember, your heavy attack is a fury, and try to combine that with your specials. Remember, the special 3 gives you an extra charge, so you can have up to 6 kinetic energies. Remember, your leadership ability, when awakened, gives you many special features of different classes, such as armor break, petrify, resolving debuffs, and so much more. And remember, his synergies are also very impressive with different champs. Overall, he is a great champ. He's definitely R5 worthy in my opinion. I think he's so much fun to play. I would love to have him as a 5-star. I would love to have him even more as a 6-star. I think he has a lot of uses in the game, and he can be used in so many scenarios. So I hope you guys enjoyed the guide. Please like, subscribe, leave comments, tell me some things that I missed, and pass it along to your friends. And we'll talk to you soon, guys, and take care, everybody.
Target identified. Analysis complete. Please subscribe.